Leadership. What is leadership? Well, leadership, I think, really is based upon your value system, how you see yourself as a communicator, as how you see yourself in relationship to other people, and your ability to lead and to inspire. I think there's a lot to leadership, and there are certainly a lot of styles and behaviors when it comes down to leadership. I'd like this to look at leadership as perhaps the ability to see a vision and to communicate that vision to others and to have them follow along the lines of organizational excellence, and probably even more importantly, to have them feel like they can be all they can be through your efforts as leaders in the nonprofit world, as well as in the community that we all live and hopefully thrive in. I know many times, and it's a matter of when you are a leader, you have to step out of your comfort zone. Many times you're at a position or at a point where going ahead is going to be a challenge. It's going to be risk-taking. And as a leader, you do take risks. Hopefully it will be calculated risks. Hopefully it won't come back to bite you. But if it does, maybe that's okay too. Maybe the challenge is part of the leadership piece. Because as a leader, particularly with a nonprofit, you're going to be making decisions that are going to be unpopular sometimes maybe with your board, with your staff, or with the community. But you're going to have hopefully the courage and the tenacity to go forward with it, to do the right thing, and to be that leader amongst people that will hopefully follow, be inspired, and support you. I'm thinking of a friend of mine who you've met. Do you recall those of you who were in the special events class? W. Mitchell, do you remember him? The quadriplegic. Mitchell is an internationally known speaker. He's all over the world. He's got one theme, and that one theme really boils down to, it's not what happens to you, it's what you do about it. So as you lead your organization and the community forward, things are going to happen to you. And I strongly suggest as a leader, you keep going, keep moving. Or if you get knocked down, get up again and start moving again. So it's not what happens to you, it's what you do about it. And it's an opportunity. And I really believe it is an opportunity. I think every time I've fallen down, the first thing I look at, okay, what's in this for me? What can I learn? How can I move ahead? And so I think that's a lot of what leadership is all about. Anyway, for me, at least, it gives me a sense of purpose, which is a sense of value, and as a leader, that's what you get. For some of us that just enter into high-ranking positions within the nonprofit world, we're kind of surprised at the kind of work, the grunt work that it really requires. And many of us lose the romantic notion of being a leader, whereas maybe a year or two or so before that, you thought, boy, once I achieve the position of a chief executive officer, I've arrived. I can kind of sit back and tell people what to do. No, I'm not telling you what to do. So you got to figure out how to work that, how to inspire them, and how to get them to move forward and work towards organizational excellence. Anyway, I'd like to get right into what we're going to be doing tonight. I'd like you to meet, first of all, Jeff Conroy. Jeff is the Executive Director and Chief Executive Officer of St. Vincent de Paul, an organization that has done absolutely fantastic things. And through Jeff's guidance, the organization has grown, developed, not only in terms of reputation, but also in terms of program and stability. And it has allowed Jeff to do a lot of very special things for you and I in this community, to step outside sometimes and say, okay, what's going on outside of St. Vincent de Paul? So Jeff's been known to help a lot of people, a lot of other organizations. Jeff and I worked together for almost 5 years. He's one of our key presenters at our retreats and some of our workshops. And then next to Jeff is Mike Baker. Mike Baker is also an Executive Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Heritage Health Center. Before it was known as Journey. It was a small organization where I first met Mike. He was 4.5 years ago, as I recall. I came over there, and I thought it was a fairly large operation at the time, but to relative to where you've grown this group, it's amazing. So these guys know how to do it. They have the skills, they have the ambition, they have the tenacity, and they have a purpose. And their purpose is to provide the best possible services for our community. And I very much appreciate both of these gentlemen. I think you will too. So how are we going to approach this tonight? I'm going to be asking questions, and I'm going to invite you also to ask questions. And there are questions around leadership. There's questions that are asked sometimes and sometimes not. But there are also questions that I think are important to be answered if we indeed aspire to be leaders of our nonprofit organizations and our community. So I'm going to do this as a panel group. We're going to break in about an hour and 15 minutes or so. And then I've invited their board presidents to join us. And if it's all right with you guys, we may ask some really difficult questions. And this is a place where it's like Vegas. Set here, stays here. We all promise.
Saying yes.
Especially with that jacket.
Chuck reminds me this jacket was born in the 70s. And I looked at him and I said, "You're right." The jacket I wore last Thursday was born 27 years ago. Did I tell you that? Yeah. It's a jacket that used to fit me 27 years ago. 25 years ago, it did not fit me. But I think some of you know that I had a little stint in the hospital lately and I lost 25 pounds in 3 weeks. So I saw this jacket at the end of my closet and I thought, I'm going to try it on just for the fun of it. And the darn thing fit. I thought, this is really cool. Now I found the weight that I sort of would like to have. So I'm going to wear jackets and clothes from the 60s and 70s. Maybe get into the 80s, but I'm not sure I'm going to be that contemporary. So, let's get going. And gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. Jeff, Mike. So I'm going to start the questions, and then you guys jump in anytime you want, okay? And I think I've sent a lot of you some questions too, so feel free.
You stand up, walk around. How do you want us to?
However you want to.
He's got a dance routine.
Yes.
I've seen it. I've seen it actually too many times.
Yeah, you don't want to see it.
Yeah, whatever you're comfortable in doing.
All right.
I wasn't convicted, that's all.
Okay. I've also suggested you guys are recognized community leaders and leaders of your organization. What personal skills and leadership qualities do you believe are important to your success? And you have both been amazingly successful.
What skills? I joke you almost just have to be dumb enough to keep trying some days, right? I mean, as you go through this, there are so many challenges in any business that you run, whether it's for-profit, non-profit. You walk into work every day and there's a new challenge that you have to try to tackle. And if you stop trying, you're never gonna solve that problem. And so part of it's just, I don't know any better. We just show up, solve the next problem, and keep moving on. But you have to bring people with you, in that process. I don't know the answer to every question that comes up in front of me, but you build a team around you that can help, solve that problem. And it's so, I don't know, you guys have been in rooms where you're developing new ideas or trying to improve something, and someone throws out a good idea, and then the next person adds to it, and by the time you've had 4 or 5 people add to that conversation, you end up with a really good process. I think that's part of it.
I want to answer the really important question you guys are all asking right now. We are not brothers. We get that a lot. For me, it's a compliment because around town, I'll get by and, hey, great article on Heritage. I'm like, great, I'm 10 years younger and great. I feel bad for him. The skills that it takes for this job is there's so many. I started off picking up my skills before Mike was born in 1988, 89. I spent 16 years working for the Boy Scouts. The Boy Scouts taught me administration and recruitment and fundraising and structure and organization and policies and procedures and how to recruit volunteers and how to work with staff. And then when I was the director of the United Way, it taught me community. And it taught me how to network, and it taught me how to know the people and how to build committees. It's my first executive director job, really. It really taught me how to build committees and to grow something from very small. And then I left for almost 3 years to work for a for-profit therapeutic school for people with mental disability, and it taught me that people with mental disability aren't scary. And so it was really kind of the perfect storm to come to St. Vincent's. When I came to St. Vincent's, it was a target-rich environment, and it was a lot of fun. But the thing I brought to St. Vincent de Paul was the structure and organization. You've got to have that vision. You've got to have a passion. You've got to be able to take risks. You've got to be able to embrace failure. You've got to be able, like Mike said, bring people along with you. For about the first 5 years, we were moving fast and furious until the point where I was noticing that the staff was not with me, and I was on a long, lonely journey. And that's when a few board members and I got together and said, let's slow down and let's bring everybody up to where we are. So you got to have that foresight to do that. When you think of an executive director, you think of a guy that knows it all. And I would be the first one. Michael also would fess up. We don't know it all. We really don't. I consider myself the chief environmentalist for St. Vincent de Paul. My job is to make sure that there's a quality culture. The staff is happy. The staff stays motivated. I work with my directors. I flatten the organizational chart. You just got to have a vision and a passion. And like Mike says, and you got to be restless. I'm up every night at 2:35 with my notepad and pen thinking of stupid stuff. And my staff is the one that gets the wrath of that. So, how does he think this stuff up? Well, 2:30 in the morning, I was thinking the sky was falling. So, yeah, it's a 28-year journey to get to this point.
You both have alluded to the fact that your success to a great extent is the people that you surround yourself with, the quality of staff. Now, Jeff, how many people do you have on your staff?
103.
103. And Mike, you have?
Just over 300.
300. Wow. How do you keep these people motivated? How do you work with staff, either through others or things that you do, that allow them to be all that they can be, and do this journey with you and support organizational excellence along the path to the success? How do you keep people motivated, interested, excited? And I know you both do it well, but how do you do it?
For us, we really focus when we're hiring on, 3 different things. When you're looking at somebody, there's jobs, there's careers, and there's callings. And, if you're just coming to Heritage Health for a job, you probably won't make it very long. It's a tough environment. There's a lot to do. And you can go work somewhere else and probably be a little less stressed out. Career is a kind of that base element. You need to be there because you want to improve yourself and, kind of progress as an individual. But the bulk of the people that we end up hiring really are there for a calling. They're responding to our mission. And a lot like at St. Vincent de Paul, you go to work every day to make a difference in somebody's life. And, we're not perfect at that at all. You read our reviews and, 9 out of 10, we do a great job. But boy, there's always that one person that something happened. You didn't provide that service that they needed. But when you get the right people within the organization and they're responding to your mission and the calling, you don't even have to ask for that extra effort. You can lead that and show people that you can move the needle, but you've got to have the right people that are there for the right reasons.
I agree. My opinion is that when expectations and values are clearly explained, the decisions are easy. Same thing with Heritage at St. Vincent de Paul. We're looking for that right person. We look for purpose-driven, mission-driven people that want to make a difference. To me, what we do is like playing golf. You'll play 17 really bad holes of golf, and then something awesome will happen on the 18th hole, and you'll say, "Oh, I'll come to work tomorrow." It's tough. So we really work hard on motivating. What Mike and I both do is we see still a lot of bad things. A few years ago, we went through a double homicide. I mean, that was probably the lowest I've ever been in my whole career. But I believe in a thing called RAVE, respect, appreciate, and value everyone. And what we do is things like we do birthday cards and anniversary cards at staff meetings. We do bonuses for people that have been there 5, 10, 15, 20 every 5 years. We do staff parties and just events, and I write a lot of handwritten notes. I think that's important. And on a personal level, I try to get to know every one of the people I get to work with and their families. So to me, it's a family atmosphere, and I think people are happier when they're part of the family and part of a cohesive team.
Great. Any questions so far from anybody? Okay, let's think ahead a little bit and see if we've got some things that are, yeah.
Jeff, I have a question. Something you touched on right away was when you felt that you had gotten too far ahead of your staff, and I don't know if you said they were demoralized or they weren't with you anymore. How did that, what did you see that helped you recognize that? And what was involved in, you described it as pulling back to let the team catch up?
Okay, so let me fill you in on that one. So for 5 years, when I got to St. Vincent de Paul, like I said, it was a target-rich environment. We doubled in size. We went from a $2 million budget to a $5 million budget. We went from 52 staff to 100 staff. We built 4 properties, 4 apartment complexes, and we were just moving. And when the staff's not with you, but they see all this amazing growth, and they'll start saying things like, well, why aren't I making more? They'll start making rumblings. And so you start talking to them, what's going on? And you start, they're not overly enthusiastic. When you talk about it at staff meetings, they're looking at the sky, or there's a lot of this. So I started talking with them, getting to know what's going on, communicating. The rumor mills start. I love rumors and gossip. Ask any one of my staff. I just love rumors and gossip. And I like to squash, everybody's being paid more because that's where the money's going, because they're all driving new cars. Well, no. Or the best one was the board put $40,000 into Jeff's office. If anybody's been in my office, I don't even have a desk. I have a standing desk. And my wife painted my office for me, and she says, "You didn't pay me nearly enough." So that's when I said there's a lot of dissension going on. So my board president and my housing and development vice president sat down for lunch, and I said, "Look, let's chill out for a little bit. Let's get everybody involved." So we started having events at the sites, and we started doing things for the staff, and it died down really quick. But what do they say? When you're out, think you're leading people, and you're way out in front. You're just on a long, lonely walk. I was on a long, lonely walk. So for about the last 4 years, we've been kind of, I call it backfilling, just bringing staff in and making sure they understand, and bring outside staff in to come talk at staff meetings about what they do, because the store people and the social service people really don't know what each other does. So that's why we meet once a month. So they're getting a little bit of information.
But if I could follow up, I'm sorry, if I could follow up, it seems like it would have been really easy to not go that way, to see that you'd had this success. You doubled the size of your staff and more than doubled your budget, and you're doing all this wonderful work. And a lot of people, I think, would have just said, get with the program, or go someplace else.
Yeah, but I'm not an autocratic leader. I'm a servant leader, and I believe I've never ever called one of the people that work for me my employee. They're my teammate. We work together. I put my pants on one leg at a time. I will sit down and have lunch with them, or have coffee with them, or help sort clothes, or get in a truck, or whatever I've got to do. But I'm not an autocratic leader, and I know for a fact Mike's not either. So that's just not in our DNA. That's being a jerk.
We've been going, I read in the paper, we've been going through the similar process as Jeff went through a couple of years ago where, similar process, we grew really fast, and, we're right now going through that process of right-sizing our ship and, trying to bring everybody along, and it kind of sneaks up on you a little bit as you go through, because there is so much energy in doing something new. I mean, it's exciting. You've got all these new patients coming on board. You've got the community saying how great, your organization. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff that comes with that. But making sure that translates back to your team and that your team has the depth to deal with those things. So as we hired new leaders to run projects, it was really easy to forget that I've been doing this for 20 years. And, the first time I had to go talk to a provider, a doctor about their productivity, oh my God, that was the scariest thing ever, because this is this doctor and they know everything and I'm just some schmo and I need to tell them to see more patients. That's frightening, to be able to have that conversation. Well, we have a whole team of people that need to go through that experience and kind of skin their knees a little bit. And when you're running so fast and you're not investing in the team to carry you into that next level, I mean, that's one of the mistakes we made in this most recent run was we outgrew our team, and we're in the same spot now where we're stopping, we're looking back, and we're building the infrastructure, to carry us into the next 5 years. But you've got to have your team with you, and it's easy to miss it.
It's intoxicating. Success is intoxicating. But with success comes criticism. And when you're a director, it's you. And it's tough. I believe in the servant leader mentality, and the servant leader mentality is leading people who don't know they're being led. And I've got directors back there right now who I hope will say I do that. I question that every day. I believe in earning my leadership every day in their eyes. So,
I was just going to ask, I'm not really familiar with Heritage. Could you kind of explain a little bit about what you do?
We are, so we provide medical, dental, and mental health services in the community. So we employ doctors, dentists, therapists, and we have sites from Silver Valley into Coeur d'Alene, up in Post Falls and Ratham. So we're actually the largest primary care delivery group in town. So we take care of about 30,000 patients a year with about 130,000 visits. So we're really primary care, but we do that in a model where patients that don't have insurance, they can come and receive subsidized services. So an office visit's most people pay $25 for a visit if you don't have insurance. So that's really our focus, is to provide just accessible, affordable health care. Well, thank you.
Do you have volunteers that assist you, or is it?
Yeah, volunteers is at the base of our organization. So we started in 1985 as a volunteer clinic. So our founder, Lidwin Durney, had a friend pass away because she didn't have access to primary care. And once that happened, she just said, enough. We've got to do this. We've got to put together some sort of model. And it ran as a volunteer clinic from 85 to 2004. As we've grown, it's been harder to use volunteers because of all of the regulations and privacy and all that stuff. We certainly do have volunteers. Our board of directors are all volunteers. But as we go through that, that's another layer as you get into that, is we can handle that sophistication and provide meaningful experiences for our volunteers. We can bring them back. So we don't have a ton right now. We probably have a dozen people that volunteer. You guys.
I have a lot of volunteers.
Yeah.
So what do you do in the community aside from, I'm familiar with the thrift shops and all of that, but there's so much more than that.
Yeah. So St. Vincent de Paul is the largest homeless serving agency in the 5 northern counties. And we're able to do what we do by having great friendships with people like Heritage. While the thrift stores are the how we do, we have 3 thrift stores, Post Falls, Coeur d'Alene, and Osborne. The actual what we do is significantly more. It starts with the 3-legged chair. So we've got social services, we have case management, we have housing, or transitional housing, short-term housing, emergency shelters, the only men's shelter in North Idaho, veterans housing, the only Monday through Friday soup kitchen that's open Monday through Friday. My staff back there is going to say, you're forgetting. We provided 82 different services last year. Another part of that is housing. So we have over 300 units of permanent low-income housing, subsidized housing. And then the last part of that is the spirituality piece. St. Vincent de Paul is a Catholic organization, believe it or not. But we never make it a prerequisite to receive services, ever. Our priorities are, are you safe, are you warm, are you fed? And if you want spirituality, we'll help you with that. And it doesn't have to be Catholicism, it can be any religion. We work with, I always say we're a lay Catholic organization, but ecumenical in service. We work with all the churches, the LDS Church, the Presbyterian Church, Episcopal Church, we work with them all. So just last year, we helped over 5,100 people, individuals, and provided 35,000 services. Last year, it's crazy.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Given the
Just sell clothes.
Yeah.
It's a lot of $1.50 t-shirts.
Given the amazing growth that you have both been experiencing and encouraging, I know with that comes a lot of challenges, a lot of risk-taking, a lot of understanding where you're going, but maybe not quite totally 100% sure how you're going to get there, or maybe almost as important is what are the consequences if you fail? What are the consequences if you make a decision and moving forward that is going to be counter to the board, counter to staff, counter to the community, et cetera, et cetera. So how do you go about making decisions that are risky as you grow and develop and be all that you can be? And how do you look at it professionally and personally?
Coin.
It's so fresh right now. It's like therapy session. Really fast. It's fascinating, because you get into an environment where, over the last several years, so healthcare is a mess. It's always been a mess. It's complicated. But over the last several years, the message from the federal government and our programs really was hurry up and grow, because you're going to have all of these patients that all of a sudden have insurance, get ready to go. And, add case management and add all these extra layers, all these additional expenses to your programs so that you can provide quality services. And we're going to change how you get paid. Instead of a per visit, you're going to get paid for providing quality services. And there's been all of these elements. And so for the last couple of years, we've made some decisions. And I think all the decisions were necessarily good in the environment we were operating in. Part of the mistake is we made 10 really big decisions all at once and tried to build all those programs. That's certainly a challenge, but honestly, the most painful thing I've ever had to go through, was the last couple months within this organization. Having to sit down with, we had 30 people that we had to let go in a reduction in force, and we sat down and we met with every single one of those people, and just that letdown. I felt like I have absolutely let down, my team, our board, our community, and the weight of that is it's incredible. Because we've been selling this incredible organization, and I truly believe in the work that we do. But to get to a spot where, if we didn't make changes, we wouldn't be able to continue providing that mission. That is just heartbreaking. And even the people that we had to let go, it's like you let people down, and that weighs on your heart. I tell our board members and everybody, it's like you gotta have this scar on your forehead, so when you look in the mirror to make a decision again, you gotta add that to the decision-making process and bring people around. It's pretty brutal to kind of have to go through that process, and especially it's such a passion. There's such a passion inside our organization. It says a lot about the people that you hire that, and for the most part, when we sat down with the employees that were being let go, yeah, there's some initial shock, but nearly everybody left saying, okay, if this is what's best for the organization, I'm okay with this, and I'll be okay. And, can I come back as soon as you guys are ready? I mean, it's an incredible thing to go through with folks, but yeah, absolutely the most horrendous thing to ever have to deal with it. Living with the consequences of decisions that ultimately, I mean, CEO, I made those decisions. Everything's my fault in that process, and you have to own that. And then you have to show up, come back to work the next day with a smile on your face and be able to tell your team that it's going to be okay and that we're going to get through a really difficult time. You don't have a lot of time to process that and kind of walk around and mope about how difficult it is. You have to get back up and continue leading. So, there's a lot to that.
Yeah, I 100% agree with everything he said. I mean, there's different kinds of decisions, but ashes to ashes, dust to dust. If the employees won't do it, the director must. It's just the way it goes, man. So, but there's different kinds of decisions. There are some God sense within the organization. The one God sent for me is my finance director. I tell her she's dead inside. Here's why. Because as the executive director, I will walk into her office and I'll go, I got this great idea for a program. We're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to have t-shirts, we're going to buy pins, we're going to have this, we're going to get staff, and we're going to do this. And she will look at me deadpan and go, how are you going to pay for it? And my response is always, why do you hate America? Why do you crush my dream? But I need that, and I think every executive director needs a wet blanket, because you can get so wrapped up in the passion, and that's why we are here where we are, is because we're incredibly passionate about what we do. The other part of that is I refuse to lead in a vacuum. Like I said in the beginning, I contrary to my wife's opinion, I don't know it all, but I'll surround myself with people who did. I surround myself with 10s. I try to find people who are 10s, better and smarter than me. And if I've got a question, my response, if someone comes to me with an issue, my first response is, what do you think? Because they've been thinking about it. So, and I'll get their input. I'm like, that's interesting. For the bigger decisions, some things that can take a little bit more time, my board president and I are hip and holster. Always hip and holster. I will text her, I will email her, I will call her. But what we always do is we have committees. We have finance committees, housing committees, store board committees, things like that, where I let the committees do the work. Let the committees work the problem, and then it gets brought up to the board. So, but are there some heavy decisions, like you said, that have the scar on your forehead? Yeah, there's some really crappy decisions you got to make. Letting people go, not a good time. Making budget cuts, not a good time. Because you have influence over people's lives. You're paying these people that they are putting food on their table and raising their children with, and you have power over them, and it's really humbling. Humbling is a great word for a leader. Humbling.
Beyond the growth that you have both facilitated, we're going into, I think, a new era, which is not necessarily healthy for education, nonprofits, or anything else. As you look down the road, and I know you're both visionaries, you look down the road, and it might be that the problems that you've encountered so far are going to be minimized by what's coming up. Budget cuts, for example, maybe lack of credibility in terms of what might be said from the government, et cetera, et cetera. It's pretty much an unknown future at this point in time, but we can all guess what's ahead, because we've got a little bit of history now as to where people are going. So the challenges are going to be greater. Have you thought about what might be coming up or not coming up, and how you can deal with it?
I don't know. I feel like I started out ego.
Too bad we're not friends.
We were gonna flip a coin.
Yeah, that's how we're going to bring a coin. Yeah, I mean, we rely heavily on subsidized housing, HUD funding, funding from Rural Development, Department of Agriculture. If there are cuts, I mean, it is what it is. Just like when we went through the recession, we were the benefactor of part of that $700 billion to prevent homelessness. It goes both ways. So it's for a nonprofit, doing more with less is not new. You just get creative. You work the problem. You put the problem in the middle of the table, and you surround yourself with some of your best people, and you just say, how are we going to do this? I'm a big believer that no one of us is as smart as the all of us. So we work really hard as a team to figure the problem. It is what it is. Whether we like it or not, it is what it is. It's not fun. We would just do the best we can with what we've got. Can I squeeze out more $1.50 T-shirts? Maybe. I can open another store, maybe. If it's okay with the board president.
Cover the back of the store first.
I will cover that. The priority is to help the people. We take a lot of pride in being the community safety net. We will do whatever it takes, and we will do whatever we can. The blessed thing that we have is that we work really closely with awesome organizations like Heritage, like Family Promise, like Specialized Needs Recreation, like we have great organizations like Trinity, that they all have pieces, and we can all help. Salvation Army, we all have pieces where we can all work together. And instead of spending $100 to solve a problem, if we can only put in 25, and Salvation Army puts in 25, and Heritage puts in 25, and Family Promise puts in 25, we work on the problem.
I think too, just going back to the things that we can control. So I can control this box. We know that we can provide great health care. We have teams that, spend all day long making that happen. I need to get really good at working inside that box and find every single efficiency possible. So as we've been going through this transition, you find little things where you say, okay, we need to see a few more patients every day to cover, some expenses. So how do you make that happen? How do you take people that are already working very hard and, convince them to see a couple more patients, or, get creative? And, one of the things that I think has helped us a lot is you take a different approach to the problem. So many of you maybe know our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Abate, but he looked at the healthcare delivery system and said, this thing's so screwed up, let's just start over. Let's find a different way to do this. And how about we take patients out of the office and meet them at the Kroc Center? And, let's connect them with a nutritionist and have them swim and, kind of connect them to healthcare that way. Well, it's a lot more efficient to, we can see 10 to 20 patients at a time in one Kroc Center class. We spend an hour with those patients, and we're actually providing better healthcare than anyone out there, because it's not just, here's a pill, eat better and exercise, next patient. We're developing relationships and tying a different model of healthcare to it. I think that's what you have to do in times of uncertainties. You really have to find ways to do more with less, but outsmart the problem. So, the federal government's going to do something that's going to impact you. Okay, I can't control that decision, but here are the variables. Now, how do we provide services smarter than that decision, and find ways to tie it together? And you find most of the time that is relying on your partners to help get that done. Instead of us having to hire a whole bunch of care managers to help our patients find housing, well, we can provide healthcare, and then we can connect them to St. Vincent de Paul for the housing. And Liz was just at our office today teaching our providers how to handle safe sleep for infants. And we didn't have to hire that person to come in. They're able to come in and bring that. So you surround yourselves with partners, and I think you can solve any problem if you do that. So.
You guys, I know, put a lot of time into your organizations. Do you look at your job, as your position, as being just a very difficult, challenging, and maybe sometimes a fun job? Do you look at it as a lifestyle? And how does that affect your family life or social life? terms of time and priorities and all the things that go into the investing in a family while you're investing in an organization. It's like you have two families that might be competing or could look that way. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, you're right. You have to have a good partner. I mean, I think just like you think of your team at work as a team, you've got to have a family that's there supporting you. Before I took this job, I lived in Utah. I worked in a town called Ogden, and I lived in a town called Bountiful, and they're about 45 minutes apart. And my family, they knew I went to work. My kids, I left every day and went to work, but they didn't really understand what I did. When we moved here, my kids, they walk in the parade, they go to Heritage Health for their health care. I mean, they understand, more about what we're doing. And so when I'm away, they understand. Like, that's just part of that. We're helping our community get better. You have to have that work-life balance, but it becomes, I don't know, I tell people it's like a hobby. I'd probably be a little more healthy if I didn't work here, because I'd have time to go, do Ironman training or something. But, as you go through that, it becomes your hobby, it's your passion. And, when I spend extra hours at work, once again, it's fun. Like, we're creating and we're doing stuff. It's not a burden. But you have to have your team and your family involved, or, that won't work.
Yeah, it's definitely a lifestyle. I mean, I married my wife when we were in college, and I drug her along, sometimes kicking and screaming. But it's a 24/7, 365, and I'm constantly telling my team that. It's a 24/7, 365, whether you like it or not. It's not a 9-to-5 job. You work in the community, people in the community recognize you. How do you want to be seen? Do you want to be seen as in a good light or a bad light? It's up to you. When it comes to the two families, you're right. It's a work family, and it's a home-based family. My home-based family comes to the office, and my home-based family knows Heather and knows Janet and knows Matt, and they know each other. I mean, they've known my son since he was 10, and he's 20 now. So I mean, it's just one big family. Because you're very passionate about what you're doing. It's fun, it's exciting. Like Mike said, you're creating things, you're doing something, you're making a difference in an individual's life. And there's something very satisfying about that. But, you got to go home and I still have to take out the garbage, and I got to do the dishes.
And you have to check out. I mean, there's the time. You just have to check out. I mean, my phone's on all the time, but
It's hard.
You have to check out.
It's hard. I mean, I've been in downtown Disneyland and been on the phone. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to disconnect. The best time for me is to go camping or go someplace where there's no internet service. And don't think I go through withdrawals. I'm constantly going, work type thing.
Yeah.
Because you're just thinking, oh my God, the world's falling apart without me.
Well, so you're finding means and activities to reduce stress. Because I know your jobs are very stressful. I know that because I've done what you've done for a long time myself. And so, beyond Disneyland, which I know you're a big fan of all Disney leadership style and all that. Yeah.
Oh, really? I'll do it tomorrow.
Do you have an extra ticket? I'd love to go with you. Thanks, Jeff. Mike, how about you? How do you deal with stress?
I don't know. So it's funny. Most people, when you get to know me, there's not a lot that gets to me. So somehow, I don't know, I've been able to just sort of build those internal mechanisms to deal with it. My body reacts by losing hair, so maybe that's part of it. But you've got to surround yourself with good people. You have to be able to check out. But these aren't lonely positions. I mean, as you go through that, there's not a lot of people that you can just sit down with and have your time to vent. If you walked into a staff meeting and said some of the things you think in your head some days, no one's going to follow. And, you've got to be able to have that safe space to do that. And, I've been lucky to connect with great people here in this community and develop meaningful friendships that they're always there for you when you need it. But you've got to develop thick skin. You have to be able to find ways to not let that stress happen. I think I've yelled at like 5 people. I've been here for 7 years. I have 5 people where I've like actually yelled at as we've gone through that process, and I look back on those times and I can tell that I let something get to me because my stress levels were they were high. And so those are regret points where you look back and go, dang it, like all but one of them I wish I could take back. This guy.
I recovered them. Mike's alluded to friendships. Some of the best de-stressors for me is I have 3 of the best friends in Mike Baker, Ryan Davis, and Mark Tucker, and we call ourselves the G4 because it looks better on a calendar than, hey, let's meet up for beer. But what's even better is our spouses get along famously, so we call them the +4. We are the trophy husbands. Sad for them, but last time we were together, I think we just spent 2 hours laughing, and that's the best. That was the best for me. I love that part. I don't know about them.
Yeah, you gotta have strong relationships all across, and with your teams. I mean, there was a couple times over the last few months where I needed a minute just to catch up, and I went back to the clinics and just sat down with our teams and just talked to them. I've talked to the patients in the waiting room. I mean, you find ways to reconnect with the mission when things are so intense. That's the other place I go to is, you think you're having a bad day, sit down and talk to one of the patients in our waiting room or, at the help center.
Definitely.
Good night. Like, what am I crying about? I have a job, I've got a family, a lot of things that are going very well for me in my life. And, the patients we're serving are barely able to make a copay to come in, and, they're suffering, mental illness or domestic violence or, something's going on. You can always find someone having a worse day. And, if you look for those opportunities, just stay really humble and do that. But you got to stay connected.
Life ain't so bad.
Yeah.
Life ain't so bad.
Any more questions out there? Okay, I have one. I know a lot of the people in this class are looking at advancing their position through
There are days they can have it.
yeah, through increasing skills and networking and all that kind of thing. And they're here voluntarily. I don't think anybody, except for your staff, Jeff, was forced to come here. So, for those of us out here, what advice would you give to some of these folks that might be looking for increasing their position, maybe even becoming an executive director or a board president or sitting on the directors committee or whatever? What advice would you give them that might be realistic, that they may not understand, know, or appreciate right now? What are they getting into? What would you say to them? What are the alerts? You've talked a little bit about that. We've talked a little bit about the advantages. But how would you counsel somebody?
Yeah, you've got to follow your passion. I mean, if you're going to go into a nonprofit focus, nonprofit's a tax status. So you need to understand, if you're going to run a program, you need to understand business fundamentals. You need to understand leadership. You need to, learn how to develop relationships. But you've got to tie all of that with your passion. So I care about turtles, but I probably wouldn't be the greatest, turtle foundation director out there. So my passion, when I was going to school, I wanted to be a social worker, a therapist, and I went through my internship, and I was listening to people, during my counseling sessions, and so frustrating. I'm like, okay, you just need to do this, this, and that, and then your problem will be solved. Like, I want to fix the problem and move on. I realized that I couldn't sit in four walls and listen to people not solve their problem all day long. So I went back and got my business degree, and in my head, I'm a community therapist. You know, we're able to bring people together, solve problems, but we can direct a lot of the solutions to get there. So, I mean, I found my passion and then directed my education to give me those tools to get there. And I think you need to find your way through that, through whatever organization. If you're already working somewhere, take some risks, take on a project, find ways to highlight the skill set that you have so that I look at those as resume building moments. I took on a car seat drive at one of my first jobs, and I got 150 car seats donated, and we learned how to install them, got them all going, and that helped me understand how to take a project, but then other people saw the work that I was doing and gave me those opportunities to progress my career.
Yeah, well, a lot of things come to mind. Things like, take your job seriously, not yourself. You got to be able to laugh. Look for ways to add tools to your professional tool belt. You're going to need a lot of them as you move up. Stay humble. Embrace who you are and deal with it. I am not detail-oriented, but I have the best assistant who is detail-oriented for me. So, stay humble. Constantly learn, stay relevant. It's constantly evolving, so it's just stay in front of it.
Any other questions? This is certainly an opportunity to get some information that you probably have been thinking about for many years, or maybe in the last hour.
I have a question on, we talked about funding and funding sources. But what are your funding sources, and to what degree do you be able to raise money or go outside the normal funding system to help your situation financially?
You want to start?
Sure. St. Vinny's, we'll just start with round numbers. So our budget's roughly $5 million, $5.8 million. We'll say $5 million. $2 million of that comes from the thrift store. It's a lot of $1.50 t-shirts. But that's unrestricted funds. That's how we're able to do a vast majority of what we do. Another $2 million is federal funding through subsidized housing, emergency shelter programs, transitional housing, and veterans program. And then the final $1 million is through donations, grants, endowments, that type of thing. And I kept it really simple. I could get really intricate. But, we have multiple programs, and like iCare has funding from the federal government for their child care programs, and we have the Child Adult Care Food Program, which oversees all the daycare providers and daycare centers in the 10 northern counties. So they have their own Department of Agricultural funding. We have our housing department, which is HUD funding. But we have 4 events a year, and all 4 of those events fund a warming center. We have the area's only warming center. So we have steak fries, and we have fashion shows and support events, and we're going to have a 10K run this year that Mike's going to lead. To help pay for that event. So we have events and activities to pay for specific programs that we have. Unrestricted funds, when I say unrestricted, it means it can go anywhere we want it to go. That's the best kind of funds to have.
And how has that progressed through the years, and what capability do you have and potential to increase that portion of your budget if you get cut back on the government?
Yeah, I've been raising money in this community since 1995, and I am always amazed on how many slices of the pie this community does. I always feel that there's a finite amount of money, and donor apathy will set in, and I see a little bit of donor apathy, but there's always a slice of the pie. It's crazy. I love this community. And I came from Portland, Oregon, so where it wasn't like that. So.
Oh, the community, yeah, it's incredible. They always rally together. You bring a project and that needs some funding, and people will step up and help with that. But I think the other piece of it is, I want to show the community we're doing everything we can so that I don't have to have a fundraiser every single weekend. And we're a little different because about 85% of our funding comes from billable services. So you come to the doctor, we bill your insurance or Medicaid or Medicare. We're able to bill for our services and generate our revenue. And so I want the community to know that we're doing everything we can to be as efficient with the dollars that we can generate on our own, so that I don't have to do a fundraiser to pay our rent. Those are things we should be able to handle, through that. But it took a long time to get there. When I first started, we were running about 70% of our patients were uninsured. So think of any business and 70% of your customers can't pay the full fee for your services. That's just a nightmare waiting to happen. And so we were super reliant on, we receive a federal grant that subsidizes care for patients that don't have insurance. So that's the other portion of our funding. And so we had to really, as we grew, we had to diversify our payer mix. We had to become attractive for patients with commercial insurance to come to our business. And I look at that as a fundraising opportunity. Every time we get a patient with a payer source to come in, that's a fundraiser right there. Come on in, because we use the money that another business would make off of that. We use that to fund your neighbor that doesn't have insurance. And so to me, that was the right process. We raise about $200,000 a year from the community, and we direct those funds into what's called, it's the Lidwin Durney Foundation, and we use that money to provide scholarships for patients that can't afford their copays to get through that. So we try to make sure that any donations coming to our organization are going right to patients instead of, helping cover overhead. And ultimately, it all filters into one pot. But we can tell the donor, you give us $100, we can help you see. That helps 4 patients get in to see the doctor.
One thing about Mike, the more I've gotten to know Mike, the more that I see that Heritage does. Mike is a genius. Because for me, it's pretty simple. No, your wife's not here.
Thanks.
For St. Vincent de Paul, the funding streams are pretty simple. Thrift store, federal government donations. He's literally playing the old slide puzzle. Because my first comment to him when he first came on, I said, well, why don't you just have days where people don't have insurance and days where people do have insurance? He goes, yeah, legally you can't do that. And it didn't even dawn on me. So he's balancing people who pay their copays and people who don't pay their copays, and it's crazy to me. So I have nothing but love and admiration for Mike, and I don't know if I could do what you do. It's just impressive.
You do it. That's just part of it. You get up and you solve the problem. That's what we had to do. Because when we can hire a doctor in this community, so CUNY Health just did an assessment, and this community, so Idaho usually ranks 49th out of 50 for the number of doctors for patients in the community. I think we fight with Mississippi, back and forth. It depends on who retires, but that's not a great claim to fame. And so there's a primary care shortage. So a new patient with Medicare in our community is going to wait at least 8 weeks to get in to be seen, because most offices aren't accepting Medicare. So anytime we can gather the resources to bring a new provider in, a doctor can generally take care of about 1,500 patients a year as we go through that. So we have to think of it in those increments and make that happen. But it takes a doctor 6 months to a year to actually pay for themselves. And so that's always a challenge. You've got to be able to think of it in that way. So.
Okay, part 2. I think it's really important when you look at the leadership of the organization, not to just look at the executive director, but look at the board, and more specifically, the board president. There is no more important relationship, no matter how you cut it, in any nonprofit organization than the relationship between the board and the Chief Executive Officer. The Chief Executive Officer, of course, is responsible for the administration of the organization. The board is responsible for policy making and overseeing the organization, and the executive director. They are equal partners. In reality, the paradox is that they're not, but they need to function as equal partners in this, with all the respect and everything that goes along with building a very trusting relationship. And remember, that relationship is built on trust, need, and support. So those are the three key ingredients to making it work. So with that being said, you've met, of course, our two executive directors here, CEOs. I'm going to ask them to introduce their board presidents. I'm going to be asking questions, and I would invite you to do the same. How many board members are here? Raise your hands high. Okay. Thank you. So hopefully you will have a lot of questions as well. So, Jeff, you want to start? And who is this board president?
Sure. It is my honor and my pleasure to introduce Mrs. Chris Fritz, who has been my board president for going on 3 years. In November, she ends her term. She has been a really great board president. The best part for me is the relationships I get to build with my board and my board president. And every board president I've ever had, I still have a relationship with. And I see this one being no different. So, Mrs. Chris Fritz.
And then this is Dr. Jana Hull. Jana has been on our board for 3 years. She just entered her first term as our board chair, and during a really exciting time within the organization. We like to.
I'm worried about my hair now.
We'd like to start it out with a bang with our new board chairs. So, but once again, our board. So we have a unique requirement that 51% of our board have to be actual users of our health center. And so it's a unique balance between kind of the traditional board of directors and then on ours where we have patients and community members interacting. It presents a really unique dynamic as we go through that. And so being a board chair, you've got to navigate both sides of that and then, bring people together. So Jana's amazing, and you guys will learn a lot from her. So.
Let me start the ball rolling with a question. Members of any board are sometimes looked at with a lot of suspicion. Suspicion revolves around, what do you really want? What are your personal needs? Are you here to build your resume? Are you here to because you really believe in the organization and the staff? Why are you here? And we have all had, including myself, a number of experiences directly or indirectly with board members that sometimes are very difficult to work with. And I've been blessed like you guys are. I've had great boards as well, and wonderful board presidents that I still actually stay in touch with about 6 of them. They're back in Colorado, and 2 of them are coming up here this summer to spend some time with me at the cabin. So it can go both ways. So the question then is, what are your personal reasons for wanting to serve in these 2 great organizations?
Well, I don't think I came into St. Vincent's with the intent of being on the board, truthfully. I was involved, St. Vincent's means a lot to me, just personally, just because when I was young, we shopped St. Vincent's. But that's all I knew about St. Vincent's was the store. And I had a good friend that asked me to be on the store board committee, so I was on a committee first. And that's when I kind of fell in love even more with what St. Vincent's does. And then through that, I'm a nurse by profession, but have not worked for a long time, raised my kids. And so I was kind of loose ends and knew I had time. And I loved the mission of St. Vincent's. And so when I was asked to be on the board, I did think to be president. I did kind of waffle a little bit because I thought it was going to be a big chore for me to do, but I've been blessed, and so I said yes. And so it's not to build a resume because I don't feel myself necessarily going anywhere else. I love where I'm at with my life and being able to be with St. Vincent's and help the community that way.
For me, I think it started out with owning my own business. I wanted to make connections in the community and just get to know people, and kind of a friendly type. So I just was like, oh, I'll start volunteering at different places. So at one of my volunteer activities that I did with an organization here, I met the development director who used to be here, Alan, who was super passionate, super like bringing people in and getting a lot of buy-in from volunteers. And then I started just volunteering here and there, and got kind of like in at this moment to help promote one of our biggest fundraisers, and then started chairing that, and it just kind of like thing after thing just sort of it started happening. And then they asked me to be on the board, and I was sure, happy to do it. Don't know anything about being on a board. I've never been on one, and then I've seen that it's just a great way to serve. I ended up falling in love with the organization after that, and seeing how many lives we touch around the community. That definitely made it to where I could be passionate about it on the other side. So I've been fortunate that it's kind of worked out better than I could have even imagined. And there was definitely, I can relate with that, like feeling a little daunted to be board chair. On my board, half of the members are very experienced board members and are on multiple boards, and one of my mentors on the board is on 12 boards. And I feel humbled by being around these people who know so much, and I try to learn from them. And I'm also learning how to lead people, even when you don't feel like you're the smartest person in the room or the most experienced person in the room. So,
what might have been some of your bigger surprises once you became a member of the board, or maybe even board president? Like, oh, I didn't know this before, and whoa, is this really what I want to do? Or I like this better than I thought. So what were some of the surprises, the aha moments, if you will?
Well, for me, certainly was finding out what St. Vincent's really does. The services we provide, and again, I was one of the ones that thought St. Vincent's was a thrift store, and that's what it was. And so it was an aha moment to realize how much I didn't know about what St. Vincent does. And it was really exciting for me and I still continue to go to all the meetings just to find out what we actually do. I'm still learning new things now. So that was just very impressed what St. Vincent does for our community and how great the community has been back to St. Vincent's.
Thanks, Chris. Jana, how about you?
well, a surprise for me was when I started volunteering. Maybe there was like 120 employees, and when I came on the board, maybe 150, and then by the time I became board chair, there was 300. That, like, wow. I've seen a lot of growth and watched a lot of the tension that causes, and also the excitement that it brings out. So I would say that also when I joined the board, I thought it was an hour a month, and right now I'm doing several hours a day. So because we are going through a crisis moment, crisis might be overstating it, but it feels like a crisis to us because it's so painful, and it's nothing that any of us wanted to do. And we've been like a growth board, like, yeah, let's get a new location, let's do this, let's take that grant, let's try this, we have like all these like visionary people, and we're just like along for the ride. And then now we're kind of like, okay, we have to be responsible. We have to get depth, and we have to, it's hard to pull back a guy like Mike, especially when I kind of think the same way. And so we're developing relationships inside the board that are like teaching us how to use each other's strengths and help our one employee that we have to do what he's good at.
As a board member, particularly at St. Vincent and Heritage Health Systems, there's a lot of challenges that you guys are obviously going through. As a board member, what might be some of your bigger challenges? Is it just working with these guys?
That's the big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. No, not at all. No, I think with from what I gather from nonprofits, I would think it's funds, just lack of funds.
Yeah.
Always trying to do the best we can with what we have, and St. Vincent does a great job, I feel, but we're always wishing we had more, because there is so much more we could do and get back to the community if we had more funds. So I think that's been one of the bigger challenges.
How about for you, Jenna? Is it just the growth, or are there?
Yeah, I think definitely the growth has been exciting / challenging, and then learning how to develop partnerships in the community, and that, like, sometimes it feels like when you're developing a partnership, sometimes it's scary, like you're trusting your baby to someone who may or may not have your best interest at heart, but still needing to build those relationships. And we're going through a lot of that right now, because we have to reach out to the other people in our community, and it's interesting.
Do both of you work with your chief executive officers on a professional level, or do you get to know them and understand where they're going on a social level as well?
I think it's both.
Yeah.
I think it's both. I'm very fortunate that Jeff is who Jeff is, and he's just a wonderful person. Personally, not had a chance to be on a board president for any other CO, but I've just been very fortunate. He is very approachable, very well respected, respects me, respects staff, and it shows. And professionally, he goes above and beyond what he should probably. He really is wonderful. I can't say enough. So it's been very easy as a board president to be able to work with him.
Well, and like I said earlier, it's about the relationships. I've got to know her husband Ron, and Lauren and Allison and Mike, and
Yeah.
I mean, we've been to their house, and we were at a fundraising event last week or a couple weeks ago. So yeah, it's social and professional.
Mm-hmm.
She's told me off a couple times.
Yeah.
So she's told me no.
Yeah.
And then I pout and I say, "Why do you hate America? And why do you cry?"
It's hard to say no to him, but
Yeah.
yeah, he has good ideas.
Yeah. Sounds like you do too. Jenna, how about you?
Well, the first time I met Mike he had about a pound of mud on his face and 10 pounds on the rest of his body when I was volunteering for the Muddy Miles event, and he was leading the charge. And I really respect and admire Mike. We have kind of like super weird pasts that have we have a lot of parallels in our past, so it's been fun to get to know him, and we kind of swap war stories and stuff. But
Tell us more.
I don't know.
That's a whole nother
I don't know if he wants to. It just, life takes a winding road, and it's really interesting when you meet someone who has a similar winding, bend in their road too.
Yeah.
And his wife is so amazing, so beautiful, so poised, and she's just a treat to know. So, I mean, I'm hopeful that once our stressful time is over, we can develop the friendship side more. I know that I already consider him a friend, but I don't feel like we get to socialize because he's working 80 or 90 hours a week, and I have 4 kids, and life is challenging. But we're we're both pretty young in this kind of thing, so we'll get there.
So the quality of your relationships is really based on that trust, need, and support. And being able to have an opening to get to know each other, which is really important. And I think that's really critical. I will share with you one quick thing. couple of my board members and I would like to ski, board presidents, and we would go up to Vail and we would have board meetings. Boards being, but they are, yeah. And we got to know each other really well and personally that way. And I think it's really important to, yes, have that professional relationship, but really understand where the directors are coming from. And likewise, for the executive officers to get to know you and what works for you. So it's like any other relationship. And it's, again, it goes back to life. It's all about relationships. So, how do you look at what are your primary responsibilities as a professional board member? How do you rank them? What would be number one? What would be number two or three as you look at a shifting, growing, dynamic organization?
I can speak for myself that I'm still sussing that out a little bit.
Yeah.
The board chair who was before me was a totally different kind of personality, and while she ran the board really well, I can see myself taking a different path and have to because of the changes. And I can see even before her, we had a totally different kind of board chair, and then going back a few years, we went through time, not when I was on the board, but where I think we went through like 4 CEOs in a couple years. It was really traumatic and awful, and I'm really thankful to be coming in now where there's like more stability on that front, but I have totally different kinds of challenges than before me, and what I see is building collaboration inside the team that is the board, bringing out people's strengths, helping them to like manage their weaknesses, and then really like supporting Mike. And like right now we're going through his review every year, like we do it every year, where we help to determine what his pay is and how he's doing as a CEO and give him feedback. And we'll talk to you later. So, that it's like, it did kind of bring it home that like, wow, like he is my employee now. And it sounds weird because he's way more experienced than I am in the healthcare center and FQHCs and dealing with everything that he deals with. He has 300 employees. I have a couple. But in this one way, like, I can really help him. And my philosophy with all my employees is how can I help them, grow them, nurture them, tell them off a little bit if they need it. And I don't treat Mike like he's any different than my receptionist in my office, as far as like, I give him the same respect that I would give her, which is if you're screwing up, here's how we can do better. Or if you're doing awesome, here's a bonus or whatever. So.
Okay, great. Chris, how about you?
Well, I think it's communication, number one, and I think it's kind of overseeing, making sure that the plan and the goals are being met and they're being we're prudent with our assets, and the decisions that are made by Jeff and the board benefit the organization, benefit St. Vincent's, and that they're done ethically and follow the law. So it's kind of more of I don't want to say I oversee, but it's a checks and balances kind of thing. I totally trust Jeff's vision. We're pretty much on the same page. He gets a little carried away sometimes. He likes to go faster or forward. But I'm very fortunate that I have a wonderful board. And with all of us, we can make sure that things, or hope to make sure that things we're being good stewards of the assets that we do have for St. Vincent.
Being board presidents, that necessitates controlling, structuring, growing your boards. Most boards have problem children on them. It could be a board bully. It could be somebody that's passive aggressive or passive resistive, or somebody that's trying to take over or undermine you or your chief executive officer. Most boards have those. And if they don't right now, I promise that you will have them. So how do you deal with that?
The way that porcupines make babies. very carefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's stressful to deal with that kind of person, those kinds of people. And I like how you put it, that passive aggressive and the passive resistive, because I think I have two of those, like one of each of those, and it's like so hard to figure out how to deal with them in the group dynamic and split off into the one-on-one dynamic. And then you've got email and text and phone calls and sidebars, and yeah, it's crazy. So I'm trying to just keep a level head. That's like my philosophy right now, is just like, don't react, don't act too quickly, just be a listener, and then like gather up information and try to work from, have a good foundation of facts, because it's really easy, especially when you're going through a RIF. It's like all of the gossip mill gets going. I love gossip too. Wow. It's been really hard, but I feel like I'm getting like boot camp for board chairs right now. So
We've made it really easy for her. But I mean, yeah, it's interesting. You've got to have that leadership quality to bring, varying opinions across the board. And Jana has done an incredible job navigating this process with us, because, when things get tough, everybody has an opinion. When things are going well, it's really easy to show up, have lunch, review the packet, and kind of move on. But, all of a sudden, there's heightened awareness of some of the issues. And when you have a great leader like Jana in the driver's seat, you can navigate those waters, because you're a leader, and part of your job as a leader is to kind of help people stay focused on the right things. And you can see things spin off in a different direction if there's not really that control. And having other board members that have her back and supporting the decisions that are made as well, that's important.
How do you deal with a situation, Mike, if you've got a board member that comes in to your office unannounced and asks you to do something? How do you handle that?
Yes, sir or ma'am, and just do it, right? No, honestly, you've got to have an open channel for feedback. But I think the thing that sometimes is difficult for board members to realize is, as a board member, you don't have any power individually. The power of a board comes from the group. And as a board chair, you're the voice of that group. You don't get to make unilateral decisions. And you get some people on the board across any nonprofit that they kind of forget that sometimes. And the thing that drives me the craziest is when patients board members may check in as patients, and they use the "I'm a board member" card. Why don't you treat me better? And from my perspective, it's almost insulting to the organization. We should treat every patient like a board member. As you go through that. And that doesn't happen very often, but you get that every once in a while where people just sort of carry that, well, I'm a board member. I'm like, I don't care. You're a patient, and we care about you, and we want to make sure that you're getting your needs met as you go through that. And those are always difficult conversations to have. You have to navigate that and be careful. But.
Chris, how about you? Do you have problem children, or have you dealt with that?
Again, fortunately for me, I have not experienced where there was a real issue. I think a lot of it is we respect each other, and I don't think on our board anybody tries to overrun another person. If somebody we listen. That is really important, and we respect their opinions. And yeah, sometimes they don't agree. We'll discuss it. We'll talk about it in the meeting, and then if we need more information, we'll come back the next meeting and divulge that information that was requested by that board member if they were not happy with what we had at that particular meeting. So I can't say that I've had any major issues. Again, I've been fortunate that the board that I've gone on was so respectful and so knowledgeable, and they are. We have incredible board members, as I'm sure Jeff will attest, and we get along well. We have we do a little Christmas party at the end of the year, just so we can all get together and get to know each other a little better, and I think that helps, but communication, I think, is a big one, and the board members, I think when you choose board members, they need to have their passion too, and you need to find out what works for them, what they want out of the organization, like you were asked at the first question, what I wanted out of the organization. It's the same thing for the board member. They need to be passionate about why they're on the board. I think we've been fortunate that they have been, or at least they haven't showed outwardly that they're not. But I think overall, I can't stress enough how much communication and respect plays a big role in the board.
To date, you've been very fortunate. Jeff?
In 28 years, I probably had 3 troubled board members. But I kind of, the way we have set, the way we are structured, we kind of set it up to be, what's that? Yeah, unilateral. So we're a Catholic organization, and to be on the board, you have to be Catholic. That's the one. The other piece is I have committees, and I always have people start off at the committee level, and to see how we get along. And they're not on the board yet. They're just sitting on a committee. And are they involved? Do they have good input? Do they get along well with others? And I'm a big believer that cream rises to the top. And through the committee level, then they are asked to come onto the board. 99% of board members we have came on because they knew someone else on the board. So they are friends outside of St. Vincent de Paul. I'll get phone calls from people in the community saying, I'm Catholic, I want to be on your board. And I'm like, appreciate that. Well, let's steer you into a committee. What's your passion? And 99% of the time, they don't want to do the committee. They just want to be on the board. So I get that. But I'm really conscientious as an executive director of board chemistry on how well they get along. And this is no disrespect, and this is no, this is not. I don't want this to be insulting, but this is my job. This is their hobby. They are here. I have board members for 3 years with a 3-year option. So I'll have Chris on my board for 6 years. But Chris will eventually leave the board, and whoever we bring on the board, I've got to live with. So we try really hard for board chemistry and how well we get along. The latest board member we just brought on was Mike Kennedy, so we'll see how that goes.
You just got a problem?
Well, he told me in an email his first assignment is to replace the executive director.
Yeah, and then
I just started working for a nonprofit in January, but what I have noticed with my executive director is she gets very little response from the board. She'll text them or email them, and like, for example, to come to the Powerful Board classes that are occurring right now on Thursdays, and they just don't respond to her. And she's sick. She has been for 3 weeks, and I'm just wondering if you have any advice of, how she can possibly get them a little bit more motivated.
I think it's about the relationship. It's the relationship you guys have with each other. If it's a friendship, if it's a real circle, ring of the.
Yeah, and I don't even know who the board members are, so I've never met them.
And that's why, to me, you're loyal to the person that hires you or recruits you. So that's why Chris and I are there to recruit every single board member. So there is that relationship from the get-go. And then the board members all get notebooks, and we go through those notebooks together and explain the rules to them. So for us, and Janet my assistant can probably say it better, I get pretty good response, and I know Chris gets good response when she sends an email out or a text message. We might have 1 or 2 board members that won't be real quick on the draw, but I think it's all about the relationship.
And how big are your boards?
we have currently 11. We can have between 5 and 12. For our bylaws. So
Yeah, we're at 14 right now.
Okay. Do you find that even number difficult when it comes to voting?
I don't.
It hasn't been an issue. We vary between 14 to 17, depending on what's going on at board terms. But yeah, haven't had an issue where that has come up and been a problem. So, and I'm a member of our board as well, so I'm at ex officio. I don't get a vote, but I think that's also an interesting dynamic as you go through that. I am part of the board, and so sometimes if there are conversations happening outside, there's also this respect level to say we are all on the board together. I don't get a vote on things, but I get to share my opinion and bring that in, and that's an interesting dynamic.
I hadn't even thought of the even number thing, and I think one way that is headed off a little bit right now for us is that we have a 4-person executive committee we are very, very close and tight right now and trying to work as almost like a 4-headed chair. And that is helping that when we come with recommendations or we come to the board, it's almost automatically not going to be a 50-50 thing because you already have 4 people who are saying, this is what this is where we see things.
Many, I have found that one of the ways of breaking the deadlock is that the board presidents do not vote. Their boards vote. But if there's a tiebreaker, then you break the tie. And that seems to work pretty well. So, boards can be very tricky. They can be a real pain, and they can be, it's an absolute godsend. And they are critical to the organization. Bill, you had a question.
It was pretty much asked and answered already. I was wondering about that's terrific, if the boards are the right size for you, not too unwieldy, but I guess you've already decided what works best for your organization.
When I was the director of the United Way, I had 24-member board. That was ridiculous, but it was fun. But it was ridiculous. Our bylaws say 9 to 12 board members. We're good.
And having a good set of bylaws is important. If you go into a nonprofit, read that before you take the job. Understand the bylaws because that's who you're going to be reporting to. It's a big deal.
I kind of wish ours was a little bigger in that I would like a little bit more expertise in certain areas. And what I'm seeing, at least in our organization, is there's a lot of work to be done. And so our committees are heavy responsibilities on each of us right now. And so maybe with a few more shoulders to take the load would be helpful. And I think we should be, I'm learning a lot too. I would like to be very careful about who we bring on as those next people.
I think Jeff has got a pretty good idea when he suggests that there's a time when a potential or prospect board member and the staff get to know each other and figure out if this is the direction that they want to go together, and that's working through the committees. I have learned that not all the work is done by the board. In fact, a smaller amount of work is done by a board. The greater amount of work is done by volunteers that have a beginning and end to a project. So you might go out into the community and say, I need you to help me put together a capital campaign. And that person would say, I do not want to go to a board meeting. I've had it with that. But I will help you. I'll give you 3 months, and I'll give you all the support, technical advice, even some of my staff to help with the campaign, and then I'm done. So the board then strengthens itself by using volunteers from the outside. And so I would strongly advise that you look at volunteers to supplement the needs that the board is experiencing now. I would also suggest that you may not need necessarily to grow the board unless you feel you need more policymakers. Mm-hmm. So something to think about. It's what I've used and what has worked for me.
Thank you.
So, any other questions, I hope?
You one over here.
I had a question.
Yeah.
So has your board always been that large? 14?
So I've been here for 7 years. It's been that big. I'd say consistently it's been between 12 and 16, 17. for the last probably 10, 12 years.
And then do you kind of do a selection like Jeff does, or work with them? What's your how do you find the board?
It's interesting. I mean, so you're building relationships out of the gate. So, you know, as Jana was recruited by our development director, we actually, that's sort of how we recruit. We develop relationships and bring people on. Really like the idea of having people serve on committees and walking into that, but we don't have a lot of finance committees. Probably our most active committee. We have a patient care committee. Those are really the ones that are up and running. We have a fundraising committee that's off and on. So we've actually gone direct to the board in a lot of ways, and it's us looking for a need, or somebody has expressed an interest and we see that matches up.
What kind of process do you guys go through, and I speak to all of you, in making that board selection, and what criteria do you look at? What are the skills that might be sought? And maybe just as importantly, what are the norms, those things that are not written in a job description that you look for? And the reason I ask this is that we're dealing with this Thursday in our board development class, all the issues we're talking about right now. So this is very, very timely. So what is the process? What are the expectations?
Hunger Games.
Yeah.
No, really, with people who are interested in joining St. Vincent de Paul at a board level, we put them on a committee first, because I really want to see what their commitment level is. I treat the committees like a farm, where I get to work with them. I have 2 board members on every committee, so they get to interact with the board members. How well do they interact with the board members? To me, it's all about board chemistry, because I have heard of, and in the 3 incidences, I've had board members come in and be very strong negative influences on the board, and when that happens, the board shuts down. The board gets really quiet. So I'm really concerned about chemistry. I'm also looking at their commitment level. Are they just not going to show up, or are they involved? What are they bringing to the table? I'm always looking for people that are going to contribute to what we do, to advance the mission of what we do. But at the committee level is the farm. When we go out into the community, because we have to recruit Catholics, we really rely on, who do we know within our own parish, St. Thomas, St. George, St. Pius. I will admit I have 2 non-Catholics on the board, but I did get national approval. They just can't hold office. Russ Porter, the CEO of Mountain West Bank, and Shelley Enderby, the administrator for Post Falls. But they add enormous value to the board. We just want, I don't want, as a board member, a rubber stamp. It just makes me and my team's job that much harder. I need to be able to rely on a board member as a director. And for a board president, life's a little easier for that person as well.
It is.
True?
Yeah, very true. Like you said, I think the senior moment,
If you want to,
the compatibility, pardon?
Oh, I just had another comment.
No, the compatibility that you see at the committee level, and actually how well they get along with everybody, not just their friends that they're with, because eventually they may move up to board level from the committee level, and so and also like Jeff said, their expertise. What do they like? How passionate do they follow our mission statement? Do they agree with our mission statement?
We have a board development committee, so sorry I forgot to mention that one, but so they meet with Bob Ritchie as our board development committee chairperson, and so people fill out an application, they meet with Bob. Bob's a patient, he's been with our organization for 10 years. He just a great guy. So Bob's kind of the test. We invite a board member to come sit through a board meeting. If they come back and still, are interested, then the board votes to, add them onto the board. And then we do a 1-year term for the first year just to make sure that that's a good fit. And then, we do staggered terms after that.
Yeah, I want to get back to norms. Those things that are not written in a job description, but I think are as important and sometimes more important. What do you look for? Example might be, you're looking for a board member perhaps that is more worldly in terms of their view and not narrow in scope or prejudice toward the specific area that they might have a personal interest in. Somebody that can look beyond their own needs or their own, they may have an agenda. What kinds of other things might you look for?
Yeah, you've got to connect back to the mission. So he was asking about what are the norms that you look for as a board member. And I think you've got to have that connection to the mission and the ability to solve problems. I want people that can come to the table. I don't know that it's okay to just say no to something. I think in an organization, you need to come in and say, no, here's why we shouldn't do it. But let's understand the problem. if you're trying to, end world hunger, well, don't just say no to every project that adds food to the table. Come to the table with another idea. Say, well, that's not sustainable, but let's try this. Or, I think that's an important skill set, and not everybody has that. It's really easy to just say, no, that's dumb, move on. You're going to kill the spirit of your organization really fast if you have a board that just always says no. There's a balance. Don't say yes to everything. As you go through that certainly, can cause a lot of problems, but you've got to have that, so.
I think our motto is healthcare from the heart. And I was just thinking, what's a norm amongst all of us? And I can say without exception, everyone on our board has heart. And so maybe that's the thing that we're kind of attracted to as a board, is we see our own kind when they come into the room and they sit down and they hear us talking. It sounds like it's going to be nuts and bolts about, how many patient visits or what's the budget looking like or whatever. But when at the end of the day, they're either going to be attracted to that part of us that's how can we serve more? How can we grow into this new area or, fill a need? They're going to be attracted to that, and we're going to see their energy and passion for that too. So maybe it's not quite as formalized as maybe it could be, but.
I want to back up just a
Question back here.
I was just curious, when you actually are in a meeting with your board members, how do you manage that meeting so it doesn't go off on tangents? And I've been on boards before where there's. How do you?
We have a strict
what do you do to
agenda.
fix that?
Where we follow an agenda, and there's always room at the end if there's any new business or anything. But we we have an hour meeting. It's during lunch, so we have a lot of people that work, so they have to come to the meeting. So we try to make sure that we go through the agenda and the procedures are followed. And we joke around and stuff, but pretty much we're pretty good.
The benefit of the committees is the work is done within the committee. And the committees are made up of experts. My finance committee has CFOs, CPAs, and bankers on it. My marketing committee has marketing people on it, et cetera, et cetera. So all the work is done within the committee level. Then the board meeting is just a report meeting where they vote and discuss things. So the board meetings, I'm very conscientious of people's time, and Chris does an amazing job of sticking with the agenda. And most of them are pretty full agendas. But each vice president of each committee gives a report on what's going on in their committee. The minutes are in the packet of that committee meeting, and everything's in there. So
they get emailed ahead of time.
we try to get it out a week in advance.
For the agenda.
For the agenda.
When you've got to have someone that's kind of your policeman to keep people out of the weeds. There's nothing more frustrating to go to a board meeting and then have it be a rehash of the meeting that you just had. If you have concerns about, the finance committee, come to the finance committee, please. Let's not turn the board meeting into another finance committee. We have business we need to get taken care of, and that is the purpose of the committee. So I think really hammering that rule home that it's okay to have some discussion, but let's not take 20 minutes and get into the weeds on what color shirts everyone should wear to work that day. Really focus on the high level governance, and then the work of the board happens in committees.
The two different kinds of meetings we have, we have an executive committee meeting, which is the vice president's meeting. That's my meeting. That's my chance to kind of let my hair down. I kind of do this. I let my hair down and to really kind of be incredibly transparent and ask, I'm telling them where we are, what we're doing, but I also have problems, I need help. The executive committee meeting is my meeting. The board meeting is Chris's meeting. I literally just sit there.
And so who's on your executive committee?
The executive committee is on my vice president. So it's Chris, it's my president, treasurer, vice president of development, vice president of stores, vice president of housing, vice president of marketing. They're all there.
And they're not necessarily all board members.
Yeah, they're all board members.
Oh, they are.
So that's the one thing I do. I don't like board members that just come to the board meeting. I want them involved. So when I recruit a board member, they sit on one of the committees. So I always have two board members on every committee. So I have a chairman and a vice chairman. And usually, so when that chairman times out, the vice chairman steps in, and then I bring in a new vice chairman. But I have marketing people, so they're all sitting there. It's very calculated. And to reiterate what Mike said earlier, when things are going well, it's a kumbaya moment. It's the fastest board meetings, and everyone's laughing and having a good time. I've been involved with boards where they're not going well, and it really is the Hunger Games. It is not the most comfortable position to be the executive director in, you put so much into it, you take it personally. You really do.
I don't know for what the situation is for most of the people in this room, but I haven't even started my nonprofit yet, so I'm way at the beginning. And so when I think about, on a much smaller scale, you guys have these huge boards and so forth. What recommendations do you have for smaller boards that, maybe haven't even begun yet, and we're really at that point where we're trying to not only recruit, but set those precedences out there for the people that we get involved, and like how often would you suggest how often do you guys meet, and how would you?
It's just an hour a month.
Each committee meets also once a month.
Every committee meets once a month. The executive committee meets once a month. The board meets once a month. So there's not a week that I don't have meetings.
I think there's also a difference between a working board and a governing board. So smaller nonprofits that have one or two staff members, you need to rely on your board to actually help get the work done. That becomes a real issue as your organization gets bigger. I mean, you don't want your board members doing the day-to-day work of the organization when you're bigger. They have no way to comprehend all of the complexities that go into the day-to-day decisions. So as you evolve, I mean, you start out with this core board, and you'll notice, so I think we experienced this within an organization as we transitioned from the volunteer clinic into a more business organization. There was a lot of drama because you're selling your soul to the business side of the practice, and get all these volunteers that they showed up every day. They checked in patients. I mean, they were involved in doing the work, and so you've got to and that's a magical time for a board. I mean, there is nothing better than being on a new board of a new nonprofit that's going to save the world. Like, that is so cool. And then you watch it, and everyone just has their evolution as you get bigger. Then you have some staff that can offload some of that work, and you have to be really careful in that transition process. But that's I think one of the challenges that a lot of boards do, that if you don't have a good term limit cycle inside of your bylaws, you can get in trouble, as you go through that. So, I mean, we have some board members they're incredible. They've been on a board for 15 years. That's a really long time to serve on a board, and they carry a lot of history. But, you've got to be able to sort of cycle people in and out and, develop fresh talent. So, but I mean, there's something super cool about that, that next step for you. That's great. But have a good set of bylaws and then, really clear expectations of what board members are supposed to do.
Can a past board member who is a proven quality person of the organization come back as a volunteer? Not on the board, but just as a volunteer, serve on a committee, participate in a special project, be a counsel to whoever might need that.
When I worked for the Boy Scouts, they did a thing called members at large.
Yeah.
So when you can step off the board, you'll do your term, but you'll step off. You'll become just a member at large. You can still come to the board meetings. You can come to the meetings. You just can't vote. They still want to be involved. They still want to be card-carrying members. We have quite a few ex-board members that are still on our committees.
That's good. You got a question? Have any more questions? Yeah.
Sir.
Do you ever happen to have a board member that wants to, has an agenda and wants to take your organization in a different direction?
No, I mean, I think you see that all across, a lot of nonprofits. I mean, you bring people onto your board because they have ideas and hopefully they can help. Once again, you go back to that relationship. So Jeff's got a great process to have people work through a committee. So there's a filtering process to make sure that the right people get to your board. Sometimes it's a surprise. You invite people onto your board. And then all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, maybe they do have a different agenda, and that's hard. Once you're locked in, you've got board terms. It's hard to fire a board member. It's really easy to fire a CEO, but as a board member, that's a really difficult thing to do. So yeah, I mean, I think you have to pay attention to that.
That's a problem that is pretty pervasive with those particularly smaller organizations whose board members are also staff members. The conflict becomes, let's say you have a board member that is not functioning very well as a staff person. Yet that board member on another level is sort of the boss, more or less, of the executive director. So who fires who?
Yeah, well,
And how,
have that dynamic on the board. That's sketchy.
It's crazy talk.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's in our bylaws that we don't.
We talked about this last Thursday in our board development.
Liz has a question back there.
I have a small board of directors, and we're struggling with that transition from now we have 2 employees after 5 years, and how do we grow our board of directors? But do we really want to grow our board of directors? It's kind of a really tough transition process. But, so anyways, I'm not sure what the answer is. I can help you with the starting board, but I'm gonna have coffee with Jeff for my.
You have to take it slow. I mean, I think that's be slow to grow your board.
Be slow and methodical.
Yep.
For coming from 2 guys that went fast out of the gate and got wobbly after 5 years each, be slow and methodical.
Do you require your board members to make a financial contribution to your organization? I know we talk about passion, and your board members have to have passion. I know it's a tough one because I'm dealing with it too, but
yeah,
they're asking our community for money.
Right.
So why shouldn't our board members be responsible to donate to us donate to your foundation on a monthly basis or?
So you've got the time, talent, treasure piece. So I think everybody can bring something to the table. Most years we do, everybody makes a contribution. We don't require a certain amount or any level, but most people through either time, talent, or treasure are making some sort of donation. There are times when you need to say, guys, we're going for a grant, and if we don't have 100% board participation, we're not going to get this. So bring $5 to the next meeting. Whatever it is, like find something that you can do to be a part of that. We haven't had to do that a lot, so most of our board members do make some sort of contribution, but they're not your major donors.
Right.
It's in our job descriptions. It's in the job descriptions.
What?
That they contribute
financially.
Plus donate their time.
I can't do every month go, I've got a grant that says you got to be 100%. Can't do that every month. I tried. No.
It depends a little bit on your board makeup too, because we have 51% patients, actually more probably, and like we have to have a homeless person, and we have to, like the board makeup has dictated that a little bit. I think it'd be a little hard to ask some people who are on a fixed income to.
Lots of good questions. Do we have any more?
So I'm a 13-year-old girl. Can we do a selfie? Come on, stand up, guys. Come on. I need everybody to wave. There's Chris. Where's Mikey at? Come on, everybody, wave. Yay. Thank you, guys.
Jeff, Chris, Jana, Mike, thank you very, very much for your gift of sharing tonight. I think this was very, very, very valuable to us because it hit us right in the middle of our board development series. And questions were asked tonight that will be reinforced again next week or this week on Thursday. So thank you very, very much for going out of your way and for sharing, and more importantly, for doing the great work you're doing in our community. If it wasn't for you guys and other nonprofits, I don't think we'd want to live here. So you are contributing to the quality of life. So thank you very much.